Okay, well, welcome to another EFT tapping webinar from Andy Hunt of Practical Wellbeing, and we're in the rather hot and sultry and sunny northeast of England. I don't often get to say that, so it's quite a pleasure to say that. Thank you for joining me today for this webinar on pencil and paper tapping, which is a kind of nice, simple process for deconstructing problems so that you have something to tap on and a way of arranging your thoughts to make tapping as easy as possible. So if we just kick off now. So what you can expect from this webinar. The webinar is about this process, this pencil and paper tapping, as I've called it, and what I hope you get out of this one is a way of deconstructing problem situations. EFT is very good with dealing with negative emotional states that come about by being in certain situations. So we're deconstructing situations to find the most important thing to tap on, so you get the most benefit out of your tapping, and also an easy way to construct tapping statements. And then finally, with a bit of luck and some time, we'll have a chance to how we can apply this process not only to present situations, but also to situations that have occurred in the past, and also events that are coming up that may be causing us some anxiety. So, the first thing to do is decide what the problem is. And it seemed to me to be two common tapping problems that people go on their trainings, or they'll watch their videos, or they'll read their books, and they'll get some guidance, and they'll be excited by the process, and they'll get good results. And the presenter demonstrates the whole thing, how this all works. And it's easy to tap along, and you feel like you're getting benefits and stuff. But then what happens is that the training finishes, and they don't know what to do. They don't know what to say, which is the first thing. Well, they don't know where to start. First one was they don't know where to start. And then the next problem is they don't know how to kind of unpack things. And they don't know what to say. So it's kind of double thing, really. This is kind of, see if you look on the message boards for EFT organizations or EFT forums, it's a question that comes up again and again. People don't know how to start, they don't know what to say. And this process is to help you, to give you those two things: how to disentangle a messy emotional situation, what to work on, what's the most important piece, and then how to construct tapping statements that you can use for yourself on your own without having to ask a trainer or a facilitator, because the experts make it look so easy. And oftentimes people just starting it, I just haven't got a clue how to do this, don't know how to do this. Okay, so it's all about aspects, really. And in the Gary Craig, the formulator of EFT, had a lot to say about aspects. The kind of the model of tapping, of reducing emotional burdens or stress, was to kind of deconstruct a problem into its respective pieces, like the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. And in this context, all problems are like jigsaw puzzles. They may be puzzles with just 10 pieces, or they may be puzzles with 10, 200, or 1,000 pieces. It's all about finding the individual pieces and taking care of each aspect, if you like, of the problem to get a resolution to the overall problem. So when you're in your training, or you're watching the videos, or you're reading the books, the problems are kind of broken up into nice simple pieces that look something like this. But when you get home, or you're kind of in daily life, what often happens is that, from our perspective, the situation looks like this, where it's just wall-to-wall aspects, very tightly joined. You can't see a way in, you don't know where to start, it seems like there's too much. Very hard to kind of pull apart pieces so you can get to work on the pieces. There's no obvious place to start. So the question is, how do you find your aspects? How can you deconstruct a problem situation to identify the various aspects that are at work in it? And that's what this pencil and paper process is all about. It's kind of way of doing this deconstruction. So before we get into the process itself, I'd like to introduce you to the inspiration for this process. This is the story of Sally the dog. Sally is actually not just the dog, Sally is our dog. Sally is a Patterdale Terrier who looks very cute and sweet. But she's a kind of, don't be deceived by her good looks, because Sally has some very interesting character traits that make her entertaining to be around. And one of them is that she has this thing that she does when she goes for a walk. When we leave our front door, she gets very, very excited. It must be something about rushing to read all those P-mails and to kind of add some of her own. But if she gets excited, she'll bounce up and down like a kangaroo, basically. And then the moment she leaves out, there's this awful, awful squealing sound. So if you kind of imagine the sound of a piglet being horribly murdered, that's about what the sound is like, really. So it's quite an extreme noise. You wouldn't think that a small animal could make that kind of noise, but she can. And so the first 100 yards or so of the walk through our house, past the houses where we live, to the grass where she can settle down and do her business and all the rest of it, can be quite noisy. And Karen, my partner, calls this the walk of shame, really. So she does this when we go for a walk. And after a while, after I've been walking after a while, it's kind of got to be a little bit sort of disconcerting, this racket. So I thought to myself that what I could do was I could do some tapping to calm my nerves. So, because I'd read somewhere that if you're nice and calm, you have a calm state, then of course your dog picks up on your calmness or your emotional state and will calm also. So okay, here's a way we can calm it down. So I did some tapping, standing in the porch, tapping on my, even though I'm a bit apprehensive about this, or tapping away on anxiety, all the rest of it. So felt nice and calm. So this is great. This is great. Open the door. She catapults out the door, squealing like a piglet being murdered. So I thought, well, that didn't work very well, did it? So we're going for this walk, her early morning walk. So if you imagine this walk's happening about 6:30 in the morning, so part of this is that our neighbours are being kind of subjected to the dying piglet scenario every morning, so it's a little bit sort of embarrassing. So I was taking her for the walk, and all along the walk I'm plotting what can I do to kind of calm the situation. So by the end of the walk, I've got this plan. And so what I do is, I'm just going to, this is just another shot, just to show you how small Sally is, just so I can kind of see the tall one is me and the small one is Sally the dog, looking innocent. Okay, let's go. So what I did was I got back to the house and I thought, this is kind of like, this is obviously a problem for me. So I got a piece of paper and I wrote out the top, Sally is. That's all I wrote. And then as quickly as I could, I started completing that sentence to kind of generate the kind of the thoughts and the feelings and stuff that were going on in me that were kind of causing me distress. So it went something like this. So Sally is hysterical. Sally is annoying. Sally is anxious. Sally is scared. Sally is noisy. Sally is greedy. Next one. Sally is underfoot. Sally is clingy. Sally is jealous. That was it. I think that was it. Yes. Oh, sorry, one more. Sally was insecure. So I went through the list again. You can see the number 9 appearing on hysterical. And I went through the list again and gave each one a score for kind of like the emotional impact it had on me. The first one was Sally was hysterical, came out at a 9. Then annoying came out at an 8. And anxious came out at a 7. And scared came out at an 8. Then noisy came out at an 8. Greedy came out as an 8. Sally is underfoot came out as an 8. Sally is clingy an 8. Sally is jealous an 8. Sally is insecure a 7. So I have all these phrases that have an emotional impact on me. So then I went through each phase. So starting with the Sally is hysterical. So even though Sally is hysterical, I accept myself and how I feel. Even though Sally is hysterical, I accept myself and how I feel. Even though Sally is hysterical, I accept myself and how I feel. And then tapping through Sally is hysterical, Sally is hysterical, Sally is hysterical, Sally is hysterical, and so forth through all the tapping points. And then I can say, okay, so how strong is that? And it's about a 7. So I did another round of tapping. So I tapped my way through Sally is hysterical, and then I went on to Sally is annoying. So 45 minutes later, I was clear on all those things. Sally was sat right behind me on the couch looking, what on earth is the human doing? So I thought, right, now I've got you. Basically, I've got you sorted out. I've tapped on my emotional responses to all this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see how it works the next day. This is kind of 6 o'clock, 6:30 the following morning turns up. Go down, Sally's looking enthusiastic and interested. I'm feeling calm and relaxed. And I kind of have the hope that, I've tapped all this out and, it might be a little bit like surrogate tapping and kind of that Sally will be kind of calm and relaxed. And I put the lead on and I open the door and she bolts out making the murdered piglet sound. So absolutely no effect on her whatsoever. But I was completely relaxed about that. It had stopped being a problem for me. My stress responses, my anxiety responses, all that kind of stuff that went on that made this such an unpleasant experience had all dropped away. And it was just, Sally is doing what she does. So we went for the walk, and that's the way it's been ever since, really. She just does what she does, and most of the time it's not a problem for me. So just tapping on those kind of lists of words or lists of kind of statements, Sally is hysterical, seemed to have some kind of effect on the way that I was feeling about this predicament. Okay. So I kind of experimented with this for a little while on the kind of, this situation is, and I kind of tweaked it and expanded it. And I came up and considered the 3 perspectives of a problem, like 3 perspectives of any kind of problem, actually. So what I'm going to imagine here, I'm going to imagine there's kind of an argument going on in this picture. I just kind of picked this picture up off Flickr. So it's kind of a picture of a policeman, presumably somewhere in the United States, having an argument, what appears to be an argument with a demonstrator. I think this is to do with the Occupy Wall Street thing that's going on. So there's an argument going on, and it's a kind of a stressful situation, or it can be a stressful situation, but there's 3 perspectives on this problem that I wanted to kind of to talk about, because it kind of helps us in unpacking things. So the first one, which I'm going to call the situation, which is in fact the context of the situation. So if we say it was an argument, then it refers to the situation as a whole. There's an argument. Now, for the different participants, the it will be a very different situation. So, for example, for the girl, the protester, I assume, the it may include things like, they're oppressing my rights, there's an abuse of power, it's petty harassment. For the police officer point of view, the it might be teenage rebellion, it's an obstruction, they shouldn't be doing this, it's against the law, whatever it is. So each person in this, the guy with the folded arms at the back, he would have his own perspective of what's going on. So for each person, there's a different it, in inverted commas, to do with this whole situation. But for the purposes of this discussion, we're going to kind of focus on the it that the girl experiences. So that's the first one, the first perspective, that's the situation. Okay. Second one, it's others, other people. Now, usually, the situations that you're involved in will involve others. In my case, with Sally the dog was the other. But unless you live on a desert island, you know, you're Robinson Crusoe and Man Friday hasn't arrived yet, there are always others about. In fact, somebody said that 95% of our problems talk back. So there's usually somebody else involved in things. So for this girl, for the protester, in this case, the other is the police officer. So from her perspective, it might be that he is unreasonable, or he is abusive, or he is bullying, or he is a petty tyrant, or something like that. Now, I have no idea what this girl thinks. I'm just making these things up. But it's kind of possible that she might have those judgments, opinions, ideas about the other person. And that these judgments, opinions, and ideas will have a certain stress load involved with them. Okay, so we've had situation, and others, and finally, there's yourself, because there's a context, there are other players, and there's you. So the final perspective is your experience of this. So in this case, she might express it something like, I'm being intimidated, or I am being abused, or I am being harassed. So for any situation, any person in any situation will have their own constellation of aspects that give them stress or distress. And it's those kind of being able to kind of unpick those aspects in those three different perspectives that help you get a thorough clearing of the discomfort or the stress or the anxiety or whatever it is that goes with this particular situation. Okay, so that's enough background. Let's go on to the pencil and paper tapping itself. So, how can you unpack a problem into its aspects? So you're going to need three things for this pencil and paper tapping. The first thing is you're going to need a problem. The second thing you need is a piece of paper, and the third thing you need is a pen or a pencil. Those are the only things you need. There's very few props required for this. What you also need is that the problem needs to be of a kind of modest type. So this kind of process, you know, if your house has just been destroyed in an earthquake, or your family have been abducted by aliens, or the mafia want to assassinate you, those problems are probably too big for this process. This is the kind of stuff for the modern day-to-day stuff that just is too awkward or difficult for you. So I did ask originally in the emails if there was somebody who was willing to be a volunteer, and no one's been brave enough to step up for that. So I have a cunning plan B, which I'm hoping, technology permitting, is going to work. So I'm going to cross my fingers and select. I'm going to take you over to a YouTube video. So just hold on one moment. Okay, and I'm going to take it to, I'm going to start it in about 2 minutes. There we go. Just going to pause it. Just want to say something about this. This, coincidentally, a friend of mine, Masha Bennett, psychotherapist from the Manchester area, also here in London. We've kind of got this practical tapping collaboration going on, and she was up here visiting me last week, and we did a little video, funnily enough, of this process. I hadn't realized we're going to be using this process, but we videoed it, and she's actually never used this process before. So what you're going to see is a segment of this video. I will pass on the URL of this video in the notes that go with this show, so you can watch the whole thing. So we're going to watch a piece, about a 10-minute piece. And this is me demonstrating this process with Masha, who's not used it before. Now, before we start, I have to apologize. You're going to be subject to the sight of my knees. This was just when the weather started to get hot, so I was wearing shorts. And as we were going through the process, I didn't realize that the camera was positioned the way it was. So you get the dubious pleasure of looking at my knees. So If you're of a sensitive disposition, you can always turn away or kind of hide the bottom half of the screen with your hand. But otherwise, hopefully you'll find the whole thing quite useful. So I'm just going to move to the start position here. Let's see, okay. Okay, just going to go back to the presentation again, so if you'll just hold fire for a second. So, I just want to go through the steps and quickly skip through here. Whoops, here we go. So, I hope you enjoyed that demonstration that Masha very kindly gave. As I said, I'll give the link to that video so you can watch the whole thing through. There's some extra pieces about fine-tuning and tweaking. It just demonstrates the whole process. But in essence, the technique goes like this. Number one, pick an issue. Number two, this is the important piece actually, mentally and emotionally get back into it. So if your issue is something like kind of an argument that you had, say this morning, that you kind of put yourself back in the situation, you kind of tune in to the emotional quality, the thinking quality that goes with that experience. So that means when you answer the questions or you get asked the questions, the relevant stuff will come to mind. Okay, so take a few moments to mentally and emotionally tune into it. Then you complete the sentence, it is, as many times and as quickly as you can. So it might be that, as I asked Masha, you could ask somebody else, it is, just complete the sentence, it is, write it down, it is, write it down. So you need to go quite fast with this and to get as many items as you can before either the well runs dry or people repeat themselves. And the reason for doing it quickly is that that provokes the subconscious mind, the other than conscious mind, to come up with answers for it. And it also means that you don't get stuck in analyzing it or thinking about it, because you want to keep it tuned into the feeling, the emotional level. So you go through as quickly as possible and as many times as possible. And what will happen is people will either start to repeat themselves, or it's kind of have the sense that the wells run dry. There's nothing left to say. So once you've done that, stop when the well runs dry. I'm running ahead of myself here. And then you have a choice here. You can either, as I did with Masha, you can kind of run through each one and score it now, or you can go through all three perspectives and get the items and then score them later. But when you've got a list, you can run through, repeat each one out loud, and then give each one an emotional intensity score. And that gives you a kind of a guideline as to what the hot spots are in your experience, what the important pieces of the jigsaw puzzle are. So I am ahead of myself again. So we'll go through the list, repeating the sentence. And I'd invite you to repeat the sentence out loud. That's an important thing. If you think something, it only goes on in one small part of your mind. But if you think something and say it out loud, what happens is that the words are in your brain, they come out through the bit of you that does speaking and then round the head into the bit of you that does hearing. And it's really interesting how much more accurate your perception of something is if you actually say it out loud. So I give that as a very important tip. So give each item an intensity score. And then repeat the same process for he, she, or they are, whatever it is, whoever the other person is. And then finally again for I am, the kind of part of yourself that's has the feelings or is in the experience. Okay, so now you've got three perspectives, three lists of aspects, each with scores. And my suggestion is you choose the most intense one. If there's a 10 or a 10 plus, I would start there. Start with that one. Because if you start with the most intense ones first, they tend to be the hinge or the pivot on which most of the rest of the problem hangs. So if you can kind of take care of that, you can get a lot of progress for not say a little effort, but for not too much effort. And of course, each statement gives you this the tapping phrase, as we had with Masha, you know. Excuse me. So as we had, it's kind of like, you know, even though I'm annoyed, I accept myself and how I feel. And then tapping on I'm annoyed, I'm annoyed. So the phrases you use are actually written down for you. So you don't have to worry about what to say because you just say what you've written. It's very simple and straightforward in that regard. So once you've neutralized one statement, you go through the remaining items again and score them once more. Kind of go through the whole lot and score them again. Oftentimes, having changed one aspect of things has an effect on all the other aspects, because we're heavily intertwingled beings. We're not these aspects are not kind of isolated little atoms. They're meshed together. So if you take care of one of them, the strong one, then it's quite possible a lot of the other ones have actually been demolished while you've been at work on the one. So if you rescore, then you find what's the next strongest statement and work on that. And then it's just a matter of rinsing and repeating. Until at some point when you think about the original issue, it won't seem the same as it did when you started. Be a sense of clarity or calmness or knowing what to do. And that's as a result of taking care of those important aspects. So it doesn't normally take long. As I said to Masha, she had 30 statements. And in my experience, usually it only takes working on 2 or 3 or 4 of those to completely change the landscape of that particular situation. So it's very straightforward. So I guess gets you to this piece is stop when the issue seems resolved to you. So you just do as much of this as you need to feel better about the thing that's been bothering you. Okay, so that's a lot of speaking from me. I just want to go into a kind of quick summary why this is useful, or I think this is useful. The first one is, it's simple. If you do this a couple of times, you'll know how to do it. It's very simple. It's also very effective. It's also, as Masha kind of hinted, you can uncover parts of the issue that might have escaped your attention at first glance. By going through the list-making process, going to it is, I am, or they are, sometimes you can find out things that are just below the surface of your awareness that are really important things that you might otherwise miss. So it can be a great way of uncovering things you hadn't spotted before. And finally, and this, you need to be using this process quite a lot to have this final benefit. So if you run this a lot of time, you may start to find that some experiences have a certain commonality, a kind of, oh no, here we are again, kind of sense about them. That a particular emotional response or a particular emotional judgment or a particular kind of behavior pattern or something or other appears again and again and again and again. That's interesting. That's interesting. If it's once, it's an event. If it's twice, it's a coincidence. But if things come out like 3 or more times, then you think, okay, so here's a pattern. And those patterns might very well be useful to investigate using other EFT methods. So you can kind of find out what are the themes, common themes. And that gives you more stuff to work on. Okay, so talking of themes, patterns and variations on a theme. So the way I've described this at the moment, we've been using this pencil and paper method just to unpack current time situations, events that are happening in the present moment. But you can also use it just by tweaking some words to work on things that have happened in the past. So for example, and it's mind-bogglingly simple, you go through the same process, but in this case you're thinking about something that happened a week or a month or a year or 10 years ago, and you can go, it was, and answer that question. He, she, or they were, and answer that, kind of fill in the blanks for that. I was, and fill in the blanks for that. So you think this is kind of an alternative to the movie technique or the telling the story technique, so you can unpack the aspects for past events. So it might be kind of a useful way of kind of unpacking things, particularly if you kind of had a bad day, bad day at work or something like that. This is a way of kind of deconstructing that to get some good quality tapping in there. So of course, if you can go and unpack the past, then you can also use it to prepare for the future. And I think this is kind of useful if you have a recurring situation, so that you're always having an argument with your boss, for example. Then one useful approach would be to do the it is, he is, I am, or it is, she is, I am process until the present situation has taken care of, and then to think forward to the next time you're going to be with him. Get a sense in your mind, because unpleasant experiences usually have a certain amount of anticipatory anxiety, so it's not so much fun to think about those things. So you could use it, think of the next time it's going to happen and go, it will be. He or she will, whatever it is they're going to do, I will. So then you've got some tapping statements about this future event, your kind of mental rehearsal for what's going to happen. And you can take care of any negative emotional stuff that goes with that. So if your thought is, it will be a disaster, it will be a nightmare, he will be terrible, I will be useless. If you're thinking those kind of thoughts about something that's coming up in the future, that's probably not very good preparation for being at your best. So using this process and pointing it at the future, you have an opportunity to kind of prepare yourself so you can be at your best for situations, however difficult they might be. Okay. I hope that makes sense. If there are any questions, kind of like type them into the little box on the left. I've kind of left that out for a moment. So if anyone's got any questions about the story so far, please feel free to type them in, and I'll have a chance at give it my best shot at answering them. Otherwise, after a short pause, we'll move on to the end game, because we're nearly there. Okay. Of course, if you still have a question, you can always email me afterwards, and I'll do my best to answer. So, okay. So that's the end of this webinar. That's the kind of the process itself. As I say, I will give you a link. I will send out a link to the full YouTube video of myself and Masha going through this process. I'll also send out some links to a kind of a written description of the process. And also in, well, either a couple of hours or a couple of days, God and the powers of technology willing, the recording of this will be available, so I can send out a link to the recording. So I hope you found this a useful process, or you find it a useful process. I encourage you to try it out and let me know. There's going to be a little gap in webinars over August for the holiday season up here in the Northern Hemisphere. The next one will be the 18th of September, which is exception tapping, which is one way, certainly, of using EFT or tapping to work with black and white thinking, that kind of stuff. People who use things, the words like never, always, everybody, nobody, that kind of stuff. So exception tapping is a very nice, simple way of kind of putting more grey into your black and white thinking, if I could put it that way. Okay, so that's about me out of voice now. So I'd like to thank you for attending. Thank you so much for taking the time, wherever you are. If it's a nice day like this, I really appreciate it. I hope you found it useful, and hopefully we'll see you again in some future webinar or in some other capacity. So take care, enjoy the rest of the day, however much of it is left to you, and see you soon. Okay, thanks now. Bye-bye.